Hello everybody, it's me, CATLOAFMAN here, and today we are going to be looking at the third experimental snapshot for 1.18, coming with many new changes, some big and some not so much. Let's get started into it. And right about here, it looks like I've gotten pretty much the perfect seed to start explaining. But anyway, here we go. Let's start off. This is the Snowy Slopes biome. Now, as you remember from the original snapshot, there was many microbiomes that would generate, and Mojang really did not like those. For example, if you remember correctly, swamps would generate out in the middle of an ocean. So they removed those in the second snapshot, and then they thought, you know what, some of them they actually really did like. And so we have examples of a mountain biome, which is encased by a larger mountain biome. Another change coming is goats will now actually spawn in the mountain biomes, or snowy mountain biomes at least. I haven't been able to find one yet, but they indeed will now start spawning again. One big change is now we have the Meadow Villages. So villages will now actually start spawning in the meadow. Now I think when 1.18 fully releases that this should be a unique village for its own biome. Maybe, I don't know, some type of mountain villagers. Hey. You know, it's impolite to stare. But anyway, I think there should be its own uniqueness to it to be a mountain village. But let me hear what you think in the comments. Now here's a big one. If you remember correctly from my first video, which I'll leave an image on screen, biomes would really mess up temperature-wise. And so you had Badlands on the right, and then you had Snowy Slopes on the left. Now they should fix that, and here's a good example of it. We have Badlands and then regular desert. And so this temperature-wise, these biome blends should make a lot more sense. Of course, it doesn't always have to make sense, like right here, but it should make a lot more sense most of the time. We even get a new mountain biome, which is kind of crazy that they're just, oh, here's a new biome in the test snapshot. But here we go. We get the Stony Peaks, which are just like the other, it's like the Snowy Peaks biome, except instead of having ice, it has gravel. Now, in snow, it has gravel. Now, my first response to this biome was, oh man, it looks like the mountains are gonna look like the old mountains now with all the gravel and stone. But now that I think about it, what the Stony Peaks are supposed to be doing is they're supposed to make it so warm biomes kind of blend better along things, because it wouldn't make sense for this to be Snowy Slopes. This would be a very weird place for Snowy Slopes to be. And so I think it is a very good decision for Stony Peaks to be added to the game. Now another big one is that desert pyramids, if you remember, if you've been watching other snapshot videos, they used to generate like underground a lot. Now they should always generate at ground level. Supposedly. Yeah, Mojang's still gonna have a little bit of work to do with the desert pyramid generation. Now one thing I was actually kind of worried about, but now that I think about it, it's actually a really good feature, is aquifers should now start to go into regular caves more often. Now, if you haven't been playing with the regular snapshots, you might know what the big deal with this is, but basically aquifers in the early snapshots would lead to pretty much nowhere. They would just go off, they would go pretty deep, but then not go really anywhere. But these new aquifers, you should be able to get very deep, and maybe even, here's a perfect example, break into caves. Ginormous caves, that is. Now, one thing that should be generating less is the stone shores. Now, obviously, this is a stone shore right here, but you should start to be seeing less of these in your world. Also, is it just me, or does it seem that mesa biomes have become a lot more often? Have you been noticing this too? I've been seeing Badland biome almost every single time I've loaded up one of these snapshots. Weird. Okay, this has probably got to be the weirdest beach I've ever seen in my life, but supposedly beaches should be more inclined to be on flat areas like it is now. Where is even the water of this place? Instead of hills. So you should see less beaches on hills of mountains. Now here's kind of a big one. If you remember correctly, deserts and mushroom field biomes would sometimes have patches of grass just laying around in the middle of nowhere. And supposedly these should actually be back to normal, and patches of grass will no longer generate in the incorrect biome. Unless, of course, it's something like this where there's already a biome right next to it. So one small change coming to swamps is they should no longer generate right next to dry or cold biomes. Now, I don't know if the acacia biome or the savanna biome counts, but things like the jungle will spawn next to swamps pretty normally, whereas something like a taiga in a swamp will actually be decreased chance, because that just makes sense. Wet biomes don't spawn next to cold biomes. Also, I've seen a lot less cave entrances, and supposedly what's been going on is inland low elevation areas are less likely to have flooded caves all over the place. And as if you remember, flooded caves were the biggest, one of the biggest contributors to being the caves all over the place. And so my theory is that there are way less flooded caves, therefore so there's way less caves on the surface. Okay, probably getting a little carried away here, but take a look at the seed and these coordinates. Okay, if you come into here, it's just normal ravine type thing with jungle trees in it, which is a bit weird, but then you come in here and you get lush caves instantly. Deeps all the way down to deep slate. You fall down here. You're in with a geode, a diamond, another diamond, and an iron ore vein. Like this, if you found this in survival, you'd be set. But anyway, we covered most of the fixes, but there are a couple fixes I didn't cover, including some things to do with mob spawning, or river biomes generating in dry mountain gorges, or coastlines and riverbanks are less likely to have aquifers right next to them. I didn't cover those things, and of course there are some known issues still. The performance issues, the nether is very, very bugged still, and the end pillars still don't generate in the end. But that's about it for today. If you liked the video, please hit that like button and the subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!